Welcome, everybody. We're about to do what we call the Israel story together, and I'm glad you're all here. How many of you are followers of Yeshua? How many of you don't? I guess everybody raised your hand. So everybody knows who Yeshua is. Is that correct? Okay, so Yeshua is Jesus' Hebrew name. Chances are if you walked up to him, in Nazareth and said, "Hi, Jesus," he would have known that you were talking to him because he is the Son of God, so he would have understood that. But they didn't speak transliterated Greek, back in those days. So his name was Yeshua. I'll probably go back and forth. I lived in Israel for 19 years, so I'm used to referring to Jesus as Yeshua. And so just so we know. So if I say Yeshua, I mean Jesus. If I say Jesus, I mean Yeshua. So anyway, you're all believers in Yeshua. And what that means is at some point in your lives, maybe some of you early on, maybe some of you recently, I think, heard the biblical story. And something inside of you, in your heart, just said, yeah, I believe that. In fact, I believe it so much that I'm willing to follow Yeshua and dedicate my life to following him. There are a lot of stories out there. There's a Buddhist story and a Hindu story, an Islamic story, an atheist story. But you heard the biblical story and said, yeah, that's true. Well, the main characters in the biblical story are whom? Israel and the Jewish people. And that's not just true of the Old Testament, that's also true of the New Testament. But one of the things that I find to be very fascinating is that a lot of people who are believers in Yeshua and followers of Yeshua have no idea what's the Israel story. What's this thing with the Jews? We know, God interacted with the Jews for thousands of years. We know that when the Messiah came, Yeshua came to the earth, that the majority of our people failed to believe. I'm Jewish, by the way, so I say our people. The majority of our people failed to believe in him. Fortunately, some of us did. Otherwise, there'd be no New Testament. Right? The New Testament is written by Jews with the exception of Luke, and some people think that he converted, okay? But anyway, so the majority of our people failed to believe in Yeshua at that point. What happens to them? There are a lot of people that are believers in Jesus that just think, well, I guess God's done dealing with the Jews, and now he's gone out to the Gentiles, and we're God's people, and the Lord no longer has a plan, purpose, or destiny for the Jewish people. And if now and then a guy like John decides to believe in Yeshua, we'll let him in the door. But otherwise, I don't know. What's the story? And then, after 2,000 years of having no country, all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere, our people are back in the same land, speaking the same language, believing in the same religion as we did thousands of years ago. Well, is that the greatest coincidence in human history, or, is that God doing something? So that's what we're going to talk about. The other thing I'd say, I thought about this recently. I don't think I ever said this before. What is the greatest commandment in the scriptures? What did Yeshua say? What's the greatest commandment?
Love God and love your neighbor.
Well, you got the second one too, but you're right. Okay, to love the Lord your God with what? All your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. So to me also, the Israel story is about loving God. My wife Daryl is here. You'll get to meet her a little bit later. We've been married for 46 years. I hope I got that right, or I'm already in trouble. So we've been married for 46 years. And that's been an interesting journey. But, when you think about loving somebody, what does that mean? Does that just mean you wake up every morning and say, I love you, I love you, I love you? To me, one of the things it means is that you care about things that person cares about, that you may not normally care about, but because you love them, you care about them. And so to me, that has a lot to do with the Israel story. A lot of us in our relationships with God, it's almost like God's up there to take care of us, and so in many ways we say, okay, Lord, what are you going to do for me? Of course, go to heaven, that's kind of important, but, I'd like a better job, and help me find the woman that's supposed to be my wife, or the husband that's supposed to be my husband, or whatever our requests may be. And that's cool. God wants to bless us. But there's also something about loving him and finding out what's important to God. And then if it is important to God, shouldn't it also be important to us if we love him. And what I will say to you is that what we're going to talk about here, I can tell you from the depths of my being, is important to God. And so by you doing this, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this, you're really entering into something that is in the heart of God and that means a lot to him.